Hey everyone, it's Alexander Robinson. Welcome to the channel, and this is my review for Mrs. Doubtfire, which came out in 1993, directed by Chris Columbus and stars Robin Williams. Robin Williams plays Daniel Hillard, a struggling voice actor living in San Francisco who adores his kids. He has 3 and would do anything in the world for them, including holding a giant birthday party in the middle of the city where they invite all the friends, cause all kinds of chaos, and have animals just roaming around the area as if it were a petting zoo. This is much to the dismay of his wife, played by Sally Field, who has had enough of it. She has had enough of Daniel's attitude and ultimately wants a divorce. And this ends up being devastating for Daniel. Not just the fact that he and his wife are splitting up, but the fact that because of a court order, he's only allowed to see his kids once a week, and the length of time that he's allowed to see them can vary. So in an effort to try to see his kids more often, he disguises himself as a British nanny named Mrs. Doubtfire, who ends up being hired to look after the kids. And you can probably tell where the movie goes from that point on. So this is the monthly retro review that the YouTube membership picks, but this time around they only nominate the movies that go on the polls, while all of you guys get to vote on them. And y'all unanimously voted for Mrs. Doubtfire, but I want to give a special thank you to High Commander Dick Solomon for nominating Mrs. Doubtfire in the first place. If y'all want to nominate movies for these monthly polls and basically fast track your request for me to review, then I would recommend joining YouTube memberships for as little as $1.99 a month. But if not, that's totally fine, because anybody, even if they're not a YouTube member, can now vote in these polls. And once again, you guys chose Mrs. Doubtfire, which is a movie that I never saw. It was a big movie in the 90s, but it was one that I just never got around to seeing. And I think this has to do with the fact that there was a period of time where I just wasn't into Robin Williams films. I loved his stand-up, like Weapons of Self-Destruction is an amazing set, and every time he appeared on a talk show, especially Conan's old talk shows, he always nailed it. He never fails to make me laugh in any of those appearances. But his movies, I just went, eh. And I think that's because at the time, I was a big fan of this guy right here. But after a while, and especially after watching movies like Conan the Barbarian and rewatching films like The Lost World, I realized, you know what? Maybe I should actually watch the movies that he criticizes before actually forming my own opinion. But as far as I know, Mrs. Doubtfire is a movie that I don't think he ever touched, but even then, putting him aside, I just saw this as, oh, this is probably going to be an outrageous comedy. I thought of Jack and Jill for some reason, which is never a good sign. So when I actually watched the movie, I gotta be honest, it didn't leave a good first impression. I think the opening is a lot of fun, where Robin Williams is in the recording booth and he basically goes off script because the script is against his morals. But the big event that leads into the divorce, it's not winning me over to his side, because I'm like, there's a good reason why your wife wants a divorce, because she's working her ass off to provide for the family, especially in a city like San Francisco, and here you are, barely able to hold a job, spending more time with your kids than she does, and you invited pretty much a petting zoo to their house in the middle of the city. So you're at fault here. I don't have any sympathy. But as the movie went on, it became a lot more than I thought it ever could be. The best way I could possibly describe this movie is Tootsie of the 90s. Both of these movies have similar themes, where you have a male actor disguising himself as a woman to try to accomplish a certain goal. And in this movie's case, it's to spend more time with his kids. And it's actually very heartfelt. When Robin Williams is in the full makeup, I thought, oh, he's going to ham it up as much as he can. But as Mrs. Doubtfire, he's very nurturing, he's strict, but also kind and fair as well. He did not go over the top in the same way that I figured he would. There are only 2 moments in this movie where I found Robin Williams to be over the top in his performance. The first is when Mrs. Sellner arrives at his apartment but thinks that he in Mrs. Doubtfire makeup is his sister, so he has to basically try to play two roles at once while he's changing from Mrs. Doubtfire to Daniel. That is as over the top as it can get. The other is a very brief moment when some guy tries to mug him on the street as Mrs. Doubtfire, but Mrs. Doubtfire fights back and goes, "Come back here, you asshole, you want a piece of me?" That made me laugh, but that's about it in terms of over-the-top performances. Robin Williams himself, even outside the Mrs. Doubtfire outfit, is really good. I mean, he won a Golden Globe for his role because it's that good of a performance. And it really, watching this movie made me miss Robin Williams that much more. It's been over 10 years since his passing, but it's really sad to know that he is no longer with us because he really was one of the greats watching this role. And the rest of the cast is fantastic. Sally Field plays the wife in this movie, and you can easily see where she's coming from in wanting this divorce. I already talked about the events leading up to the divorce, but as the movie goes on, especially when we get to the end of the film, she kind of realizes that, yeah, Daniel was a pain in the ass a whole lot, but what he does for his kids is really outstanding. So things might not work well for us, but why should he be restrained from seeing his own kids? Because things didn't work out in our favor. And the movie actually ends with a very strong message that, look, some people are not meant to be together. Some divorcees stay civil to each other and things work better when they're not married. It's one of these things where watching the end of the movie and the message that it delivers kind of makes me happy I saw this movie when I did, because had I seen it when my parents were still together, I probably would have had a different mindset, or at least the ending wouldn't have affected me as much as it did. Harvey Fierstein is a lot of fun in this role, playing Daniel's brother. He's more or less an extended cameo because he pretty much disappears in the second half, but he makes the most of every scene that he's in, which is a perfect opportunity for me to talk about the makeup effect in this movie, because in universe, in the film's context, he's the one that gives Daniel the Mrs. Doubtfire makeup, and the makeup work is incredible. It won an Academy Award because it is that convincing. And throughout this entire movie, there were points where I really thought that Mrs. Doubtfire was played by somebody else and not Robin Williams. So that's incredible right there. And then you also have Pierce Brosnan in this movie, who in any other movie, he would have been painted as this giant prick asshole who is better looking than the main character and steals his woman. But he's not really like that. He's just an old friend of Miranda, and the two of them reconnect, and there's nothing really diabolical about him. He's just a good-looking guy who would eventually go on to play my favorite James Bond 2 years later in GoldenEye. So I get why Daniel has an issue with him, but he's not an asshole. He's just a regular guy. There are some scenes in this movie that just don't work for me personally. Like I said, the opening was not a good first impression, especially when the movie tries to have Miranda be the bad guy in the situation when the divorce was all Daniel's fault. And then the big scene at the dinner where Daniel has to go between Mrs. Doubtfire eating dinner with the family to him having a dinner meeting with his boss. It's a little predictable. It's not really all that funny. But that's pretty much all I have to say in terms of criticisms. I don't think this movie is like a masterpiece per se, but it is so much better than I ever thought it could be. And I would say it's worth seeing in your lifetime. This is one of the better 90s comedies out there. Robin Williams is incredible. The makeup job is perfection. The rest of the cast is great. And Howard Shore's score is very good as well. It's that standard comedy 90s score that feels very whimsical. I dig it quite a bit. So if you haven't seen Mrs. Doubtfire, I would say definitely check it out at some point. Among the movies that have male characters dressing as women to accomplish a goal or avoid a certain situation, this, Tootsie, and Some Like It Hot. Some Like It Hot is obviously the better of the movies. However, I think I might like Mrs. Doubtfire over Tootsie, but I've only seen Tootsie once, so I'm gonna have to revisit that movie. But Mrs. Doubtfire itself was far better than I could have imagined and really good. And there you go, that's my review for Mrs. Doubtfire. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, but thank you also for voting on this movie in the polls, and once again, thank you to High Commander Dick Solomon for nominating the film to begin with. Once again, if you guys want the ability to nominate movies for these monthly polls, you can join YouTube memberships, and I will say right now, there's not going to be a poll next month because back when this perk was member exclusive, I had a tie in February between Whispers of the Heart and Karate Kid. So the YouTube membership decided to have me review Karate Kid for May, which makes sense because we've got Karate Kid Legends coming out at the end of the month. So the next time you'll see another retro review poll will be in June in what I'm going to call VP Retro Reviews, which basically is going to translate to viewer pick retro reviews. So once again, thank you guys so much for supporting this channel, whether you're a subscriber or a YouTube member right over here. You guys are the reason why this channel continues to grow. And if you want to help to financially support the channel, you can do so via YouTube memberships. But until next time, I want to know what you guys think about Mrs. Doubtfire. Whatever your opinions are, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell button to get notifications. If you want to find me elsewhere on the internet, you can find me on these social media platforms and my theme park and travel channel right here on YouTube. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, have a good day and take care of yourselves.